Profiles in Cinema, Winona Ryder.
Cinema? What the hell is cinema? We do a Cinemania.
You might think Winona Ryder's movies and TV shows are weird. Beetlejuice, Heathers, Bram Stoker's Dracula, Edward Scissorhands, and more recently Stranger Things come to mind. But wait until you hear about how Winona Ryder grew up. Originally, she was born Winona Laura Horowitz in 1971, and her childhood had some very 70s moments. Her mother and father between them covered several artistic disciplines, including author, video producer, editor, publisher, antique bookseller, and archivist. Her godfather was Timothy Leary, well-known psychologist and author who also dabbled in promoting the use of psychedelics. He was not the one who suggested her unusual name, however. Her parents were passing through Winona, Minnesota, when Ryder's mother went into labor prematurely. Born between the place they were leaving and the place they were headed, Winona Ryder's birth presaged her unusual childhood. Part of her growing up took place in San Francisco, which especially in the 70s had an interesting reputation for being weird. But in 1978, at the tender age of 7, Ryder and her parents joined a commune near Elk in Mendocino County, California. There she lived on 300 acres with no TV or electricity but 7 other families. She credits this time with developing her love of reading. And as a budding counterculturist, her favorite novel as a kid was, of course, A Catcher in the Rye. Her parents were an atheist and a Buddhist, and her family friends included not only Timothy Leary, but also the beat poets Allen Ginsberg of Howl fame and Lawrence Ferlinghetti, as well as sci-fi author Philip K. Dick, whom we will come back to later. And despite living in California, because of Ryder's Ashkenazi Jewish descent, her grandparents naturally lived in Brooklyn, where the family visited them every year. 3 years after joining the commune, Ryder's family moved to nearby Petaluma, where she was bullied a lot as a preteen and later teenager. Even after Ryder started gaining success in Hollywood as a young actress with Beetlejuice, the local kids were not impressed. They just started calling her a witch instead. Well, yes, of course, Ryder's talent and subsequent career are also moderately interesting. Case in point, at 15 years old, Ryder chose her stage name, Ryder, from the record album by Mitch Ryder that her father played. Winona Ryder debuted in Lucas, a coming-of-age movie starring Corey Haim, Charlie Sheen, and Courtney Thorne-Smith. Not a bad cast for a new actress. That had only been her second audition. Apparently, the camera loved young Winona, and a mere 2 years afterward, she had her breakout role of Lydia Dietz in 1988's Beetlejuice. While Ryder's performance in this role was almost single-handedly responsible for mainstreaming goth culture, it's also important to note that the vibe of this character was largely inspired by a different gloomy girl character from a series of cartoons in the New Yorker magazine called The Addams Family, which became popular enough that it got turned into a 60s TV sitcom. In the words of Beetlejuice himself, save that guy for later. At the tender age of 15, Ryder was already making a name for herself in Hollywood as the quirky, alienated outsider. Roles that followed often, but not always, were made in the same mold as Lydia. For example, the rather popular but also iconoclastic Veronica Sawyer in Heathers made a movie about teen murder-suicide into a cult classic. Ryder's agent had begged her to turn down the role at the time, and although the film was not a commercial success, it was critically well received. Perhaps we can think of Winona Ryder as okay with taking chances, whether in life or art. Sometimes these risks paid off in recognition, both audience and critical, instead of in dollars. Speaking of critical successes, Ryder had her first major award nomination, a Golden Globe, for her performance in the 1990 film Mermaids, also her first literary adaptation. Ryder played opposite Cher and Bob Hoskins as a neurotic teenage girl whose absent-minded and paradoxical obsession with Catholicism almost kills her kid sister, which was the debut role for one Christina Ricci. Listeners of a certain age might recall that Ricci's next role was as the 1990s incarnation of Wednesday Addams, in a take on the character very much inspired by Ryder's performance in Beetlejuice. The fact that Ricci went on to continue playing neurotic goth girls and an occasional muse to Tim Burton all throughout the 90s and early aughts only proves that all kid sisters copycat their big sisters, whether they're biological or spiritual. Between her more unusual Burton-esque films, Winona Ryder starred in several period pieces and literary adaptations, which surely must have thrilled her little book nerd heart.
Don't call me Shirley.
The chief standout among them was The Age of Innocence, which actually won her that Golden Globe Award this time, and earned her first nomination for an Oscar and a BAFTA. She also played in Anne Frank's Diary of a Young Girl, The House of the Spirits, How to Make an American Quilt, Little Women, which got her a second Oscar nom, and Bram Stoker's Dracula, opposite Keanu Reeves and Gary Oldman. A more careful actress would have said to herself, period pieces must be my niche. I've done well so far, let's just keep this gravy train going. But not Ryder. In the middle of this period, Winona agreed to headline Reality Bites, newbie director Ben Stiller's feature directorial debut. Far from period, this film was a Gen X drama that showed off Ryder's comedic skills, but was not as commercially successful as anticipated. Nevertheless, she can say the film was only greenlit because of her star status at the time, a flex not every actress can boast, especially one with a career barely 8 years old. The 1990s was very much Winona Ryder's decade, and as it wound on, Ryder's work became quite the mixed bag of genres and form. Among these were theater performances and Eve Ensler's famed The Vagina Monologues, a film adaptation of Arthur Miller's classic play The Crucible, several music videos, a Woody Allen film, a meta-documentary, and an Alien sequel all in the mix. But the most remarkable film during this period was 1999's Girl Interrupted, which was supposed to have been Ryder's Oscar ticket, but instead wound up with that coveted little golden statue going to her co-star, Angelina Jolie. This was a shame because Ryder not only performed as a borderline personality disorder patient at a psychiatric hospital, but she also served as the film's executive producer and had been attached to the project since its inception in 1996. Ouch. But before you think that Winona Ryder was robbed, consider that Ryder turned to judging instead of being judged.
Hey, that's our job!
When she became a member of the jury at the 1998 Cannes Film Festival. And it also isn't fair to say Ryder's always been passed over. She has plenty of little golden statues, even if none of them are named Oscar. Her list of honors is longer than we have time to name here. One of them is even a Grammy. Yet as Ryder was starting her own music company, Roustabout Studios, in 1999, and celebrating her new star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in 2000, she was also rapidly approaching a crossroads in her career. It is a Hollywood truism that stars who rise quickly fall hard, and unfortunately, this is a fate that befell Winona Ryder. Consider that after her first 4 heady years of filmmaking, back in 1990, she suffered a bout of nervous exhaustion that derailed her plans to appear in The Godfather 3. A decade later, in August of 2001, she again found herself in physical distress, this time with a severe stomach-related disorder that landed her in the hospital and rendered her an early victim of the opioid crisis. A few months later, in December of 2001, she was fighting depression while taking a series of misprescribed painkillers. The doctor involved later had his medical license revoked, but the damage was done. Hopped up on pain pills, Ryder ended up getting involved in an incident that brought her criminal charges for shoplifting. Unfortunate, too, was the timing. The American justice system, right after 9/11, had made up its mind to be tough on crime, which meant Winona got nailed on a felony rap, even though she had repaid the store for the merchandise, plus additional financial damages. For the next several years, while she carried out her community service hours, and even after, she was on hiatus from acting. A few directors made queries about having Ryder on their projects, but at that time she was uninsurable. And if you can't get a completion bond for your project, you don't have a project. If this had been the end of Winona Ryder's career, this would be a rather melancholy profile in Cinemania. But luckily, Ryder's own luck changed in 2006. That year, the bans were lifted and she was able to get back into acting. Perhaps ironically, or perhaps intentionally, Winona Ryder's second film during her comeback was Richard Linklater's rotoscoped adaptation of A Scanner Darkly, a 1977 novel by old family friend Philip K. Dick. Didn't I say we would come back to him? In Scanner, Winona Ryder plays a narcotics agent investing in a legal drug ring while simultaneously taking many banned substances herself. By 2008, Ryder was edging back into the mainstream again with a cameo role as Spock's mother in J.J. Abrams' take on Star Trek. 2010 saw her move from cameo to a prominent supporting role as an aging ballet star in Darren Aronofsky's noir ballet film Black Swan. That same year, a made-for-TV melodrama called When Love Is Not Enough gave Ryder the opportunity to take the lead once more. a role which also garnered her a SAG Award nomination. Once Ron Howard asked her to star in his comedy The Dilemma in 2011, Winona Ryder was officially back, baby. Between 2011 and 2016, Ryder acted in a spate of dramas and thrillers, each a bit darker than the last. For example, she earned critical acclaim for her starring role as Sasha Milgram in Experimenter, the Stanley Milgram story, a real-life academic horror story. Some others included a role as the wife of genuine mob hitman and serial killer Richard Kuklinski in The Iceman, The Informers, The Letter, Homefront, and the television show Turks and Caicos. Winona Ryder's newest claim to fame might have been given a boost by all of her early work in the weird and macabre, as well as her later work in spine-tingling thrillers. In 2016, Stranger Things saw Ryder in the meaty role of Joyce Byers, mother of Will Byers, and a force throughout the show. Ryder's performance has cemented her status as a talented actress, which we already knew, but also her capacity to keep up the performance in the presence of a whole lot of weird. For anyone familiar with Beetlejuice or Edward Scissorhands, this ability of Ryder's is part of what makes her, her. Stranger Things does, strangely enough, also have enough room in the show for Winona Ryder's comedic talents to shine as well. By the time you hear this profile in
Cinemania,
the last episode of the final season of this wonderful show may be behind us, but Winona Ryder's powerful performance will stay with us. If you are worried that Winona Ryder will fade into obscurity after Stranger Things ends, don't. She has slain her personal demons and is back to work being an actor in movies both funny and thrilling. In 2024, she reprised her role of Lydia in Beetlejuice, with the new generation's quirky, alienated outsider, Jenna Ortega, playing her daughter. You might call it a return to form. It might surprise you to know that Ortega built her career also playing Wednesday Addams, a performance informed by Christina Ricci's Wednesday, bringing it all right back around in a cool, weird, little outsider circle. This has been another profile in Cinemania. This episode was written and performed by Andrea Palladino and Ethan Ireland. Music by Carl Casey at White Bat Audio.